Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Here is a Norwegian text message for you this morning. Lena, I'm having one more beer with Sven. If I'm not home in 2 hours, read this message again. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning, everybody. Good old Sven, and he's out there with his friends. Oh, thank you very much. Kate Smith, wonderful, beautiful lady, and what a singer she was. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers, like Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call Kelly and the crew, 734-6969. If I'm not home in 2 hours, read this message again.
Love it.
How are you, Gina?
I am doing well. It's Tuesday, and we're marching through the week as it is.
May I, at this little portion of eternity on the program, mention that today is Deanne's birthday. Happy birthday, Deanne. And many more. She's going out with some friends this noon for lunch. Yes.
Oh, so she gets to leave you home alone.
Yes.
That is a birthday present in and of itself.
They made a movie, Home Alone, and I certainly hope it doesn't end up like that.
You might have to tie it to something.
Well, believe me, I'm not exactly transportable, babe. I ain't gonna run away.
Yeah, I know, but I think a birthday present is just her getting to leave the house without you.
No kidding. And, you know, the thing that really got me thinking that she was anxious about getting away on her birthday is that she got dressed last night and made her hair up, and she was sitting at the door at 1 o'clock this morning.
She's ready and waiting. She's ready to leave.
She said, "Are they here yet?" And I says, "No, babe, that's the 4:30 a.m. newspaper man."
Dang it, well, hurry up and get here.
Do we have a pledger?
We have Rotten on for the pledge and Mr. Michael Rogers on for the weather.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, sir.
Tell that beautiful young lady of yours a happy birthday from us.
I will do that, sir. Give us the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I bless you and your wife. Thank you so much, sir. God's blessings. Have a good day. Thanks, Dal.
Okay.
All right, buddy. Thank you much.
Bye-bye.
Time for the weather. Here's MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Good morning, everybody. 35 degrees in beautiful downtown Murtaugh. I sit here 17 miles from the border of Mexico in Nogales, Arizona. Got up to 82 yesterday. Is going to get up to 83. I now make my way up to the village of Seattle, Washington, coming through the Magic Valley of South Central Idaho, and I got a feeling I'm going to need to bring a sweater, which is probably true as I look at the weather. In fact, I'm even going to need to bring a snow shovel because you got snow in the forecast for tomorrow. Clouds and rain will kick in later on tonight. Temperatures will be on the mild side, 52 for the high. And, of course, as the frontal system passes, when you get on the other side of it, the temperatures will get cooler. 39 for the high tomorrow. Snow showers The one thing people in the Magic Valley of South Central Idaho do not like, hate with no passion, is the wind. And you're going to get that, too. You're going to see winds 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusting to possibly 40, starting tonight, going into tomorrow, tapering off the day after tomorrow. Other than that, look forward to coming back to Idaho. Zeb, I'll stop in and see you, and happy birthday. The end. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
All right, MichaelRogersWeather.com right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Thank you. And right now, also, don't forget Daryl's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You know, I had a lady call me the other day, as a matter of fact, and she said, do you really take all your rumply crumply clothes into Daryl's Cleaners? I said, absolutely. Been going there for years and years. They do the best job. I like my Wranglers done a certain way, my shirts, sports jackets, everything. They do the job. Absolutely the best. You'll find out. Stop in today, whether it's your tablecloths, your drapes, your clothes, everything. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Please take my word for it. Nice people. SafeLink Internet. Boy, you talk about nice people, you got to talk about SafeLink Internet, Idaho's #1 choice for wireless high-speed internet. SafeLink Internet services, fastest internet speeds, period. You better believe it. Order now. Get on the program like we've been for years. 677-8000. That number again, 677-8000, and they can help you. Believe me, the service is fantastic at SafeLink Internet, serving you. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this morning, as a matter of fact, we heard rumblings of this last evening with some of the contacts I have in the news. And we heard earlier this morning a news report. Now, I am going to give you this as a news report that is what has been handed to me via some of the contacts I have back east with Ann Guerin and other folks with the Washington Post, that the United States is seeking a prisoner swap with the Taliban to possibly free Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Now, this is in the works, and I'm just going to read you a little bit of some of the excerpts that they've sent us. And I am not sticking my neck out and saying it's a done deal, but I'm just saying this is what has come across to me this morning. In an effort to free American captive Bo Bergdahl before the bulk of U.S. forces leave Afghanistan this year, the Obama administration has decided to try to resume talks with the Taliban and sweeten an offer to trade Taliban prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, for the Army sergeant current and former officials have said. And one reporter made a quote to the Pentagon press secretary, Rear Admiral John Kirby, that said U.S. officials are eager to get the soldier back, and, quote, he's been gone too long. We want him back. We never stop trying to bring that about. He's never been far from anyone's mind here. Now, again, I want to reiterate, that is a news story from the Washington Post and many news outlets, Fox News and others, that started brewing again last night, and I got word this morning about U.S. seeking the prisoner swap, and hopefully that'll come to fruition, and we'll get Idaho Bo Bergdahl back home. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Oh, go to the light. Go to the light. Go to the light. If you need lights, go to the lights, and that's where the lights are. They've got all the incandescent light bulbs. Now, this ridiculous government, with all their pathetic regulations and saying, well, you can't have that light bulb, but you can have this one. You can't do this, but you can do that. Store up on incandescent light bulbs like I am, and just kind of thumb your nose at their ridiculous regulations. They've got them in 40, 60, 75, or 100-watt bulbs, and you can buy them by the box or individually at Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by, please. I want to remind everybody, too, about Valley White Home and Ranch. You know what I like about Valley White Home and Ranch? is that no matter when I go over there, they've got such a great staff of really, really friendly people and very knowledgeable people. You go in and say, well, do you have this? Do you have that? Where's it located? Bam, it's right there. And I'm telling you, they've got everything you need for the farm, the home, the family, and the ranch. So stop in. And by the way, early in the morning, you might want to stop in for a cup of coffee, set your day off right. A lot of your buddies are going to be there visiting at Valley Wide Home and Ranch. And we're still going to get some cold days. We're still going to get some cold days, and if you ran out of ice melt during that cold spell, not smell. It didn't smell, it had a spell. And they've got a lot of ice melt left. So you stop over to where everybody goes for what they need, Valley Wide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. It's Mary. I just want to call and wish Deanne a very happy birthday. And hallelujah that they're actually going to try to get Bo back.
Yeah, I think on both counts, congratulations to Deanne on celebrating her birthday, and also celebratory type things are said in hopes that Bo Bergdahl will be released, and we can only hope and pray.
That's right. Well, thank you for letting me say happy birthday to her.
Well,
talk to you later.
Thank you, and God blessings to you.
Same to you.
All right, thank you much. Bye. Nice lady right there. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. By the way, I'm urging you. I had a talk yesterday with my dear friend Jack Euler, and I urge you folks out there in the audience to please become involved with your politicians. And I don't want to I won't even take a call. I won't take one single call from somebody that calls me up and says, well, it doesn't do any good. They don't do what I want anyway, so I'm not going to visit with them. No, I don't want to hear that kind of negativity. Did you or have you honestly stood in their face and asked them questions and demanded answers? Have you? Well, if you haven't, I suggest you go to the Minnecasia Lincoln Day Luncheon, which will be held Saturday, March 1st at 2 p.m. at Maury's Steakhouse in Burley. And the tickets can be purchased at the door for $25. That'll be the best $25 you ever spent. Or you can call Gary Koss at 312-9374 or Chairman Wayne Hurst at 654-2037. I urge you to be in attendance at that Lincoln Day banquet. Don't gripe and complain at me unless you've exhausted the effort to also talk to them, the politicians, face to face. Please, we've got to get things straightened up, and the only way we're going to do it is to be an in-your-face, I want answers now, don't send me a form letter, look them in the eyes type response. Okay? Be there. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear what happened in Tennessee at the Volkswagen plant? This is really, really historical. The plant had an open election as to whether or not they would go union, United Auto Workers Union. And they voted resoundingly, nope, don't want it. And believe me, they had opportunities to have the union people come in, and they sat down with the workers, and they presented their case, and the UAW and the SEIU and all of these unions were there many, many times visiting with the workers, and the workers said no. But now, the unions are crying foul. After all this, with pitching their case to the workers and everything else, and the vote went against the unions, the workers decided not to go union. The unions are crying foul and blaming the Republicans for the no vote, and they're demanding a revote. I tell you, it just doesn't change with these people. Here's the thing. The workers at this plant are making more money than union wages, and they don't have the hassle with the union dues and the union personnel. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Paulie and I want to wish Deanne happy birthday, girl, and many more. Enjoy today.
Well, that is awfully nice. I think she's listening in the other room, and she's probably smiling like a Cheshire cat.
I don't blame her.
All right. And she says, I can't wait for noon hour.
Yeah. Hey, about that you hear old Kerry last night?
In Indonesia?
Well, he's saying now that global warming and the weather change is a devastating weapon.
Yeah.
We're going to use it as a devastating weapon.
Why do you suppose, Al, right now, that the Obama administration is coming out with a great big push on climate change and saying how it's going to kill mankind and everything else? Why do you suppose they're doing this?
To get everything off of the Benghazi and stuff like that?
Off of Obamacare primarily.
Right.
Right. And
Don't do anything in the world to get off of that crap. So people, don't listen to the baloney, and let's get together and get that bunch out of that office.
Amen. Well said and well stated. Thanks, Al.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one, Deanne.
She's loving it. She's loving it. She's loving it.
Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. Hey, by the way, what Al was just talking about is Secretary of State John Kerry. And I got to tell you this real quick. Caller, don't go away. I want to take your call, but I want to say this. You folks in the audience have had an opportunity many, many times to call and talk about global warming or climate change. I've given you the opportunity as to whether or not you believe in it. There is an editor at the Times News that thinks we're all flat earthers and relatively dumb if we don't believe in climate change. Well, I'm going to tell you something yesterday that was very, very telling about the science for the last 17 years. The last 17 years, the Earth has cooled drastically. And this year, if you read the papers, and I suggest you do your own study, for the first time in I don't know how many years, the Great Lakes, Michigan, etc., all froze over. That is very uncommon. And we are entering, as many scientists and many people involved in weather prognostication have said, into a severe cooling zone, a cyclical cooling zone. And even the New York Times, very liberal, said there is no definitive evidence of climate change. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, and happy birthday, Deanne.
Well, I'm here too, but I'll just sit back and wait till you're done.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelers.
Oh, I am.
You got thick skin, though.
Yeah, I know I do.
You got to have. Yeah, that deal in Tennessee and Volkswagen, I think that's great.
It is great.
And they're pulling the race card on it. Can you believe that?
Yes.
There must not be many black employees down there.
Well, no, wait a minute. Why do you say, in your opinion, are they playing the race card? Why did you say that? I want to get your opinion on that.
My opinion is they have nothing to stand on. When liberals, you beat them with facts, then they pull the race card.
They either pull the race card, Doug, or they pull a foul card. And what people don't realize, and I want to amplify this, and you follow this story so you know I'm telling the truth. The Volkswagen factory in Tennessee gave the unions and the other side ample opportunity to work with the workers and study with the workers and talk to the workers so the workers could make their own choice on whether to go union or not. They decided not to, and as many of the spokesmen have said, they didn't want to fall into the same pitfalls the UAW has in Detroit, and they were making more money without the union wages and without the union hassles, so they voted no. So what do they do right away? The unions and everybody else on the left, the doggone Democrats, start calling race and or foul.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you can expect that out of them, no matter what subject you're talking about. When you present them with the facts, and they can't back up the way they think and how they think things should go, then they're pushed in the corner, so they pull the race card to get people to shut up.
Absolutely. And I was listening, and by the way, did you know that the one gentleman, I don't know if you saw the news clips or not, but one of the workers wearing a baseball cap that was a spokesperson for the workforce was interviewed, and he has already had threats from the union for speaking out.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yep.
I mean, if they can't get their way, they'll bully it. And in Tennessee, that Volkswagen plant, they've seen what happened in Detroit.
That's right. That's right.
And that's the reason Detroit's in the position it's in, is because of big labor and Democratic, running the running the show.
You got it, my friend. And, you know, my dear friend Dave Bigo from Indianapolis has been on this program many, many times. You've heard him talking and denouncing unions and how he fought the SEIU. I'm going to have him back on next week. We're going to be talking about this situation in Tennessee, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Doug, as usual, I'm running late. I got to go. Thanks.
You never run. You're just late.
Yeah, I'm just spinning in circles. Thanks. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Oberlin in Burley. I love this place. I think they're just absolutely fantastic people, Thomas and Terry, the whole crew. And believe me, the service is unbelievable. Food was great, absolutely great for our lunch bunch. And our next lunch bunch is coming up on the 27th. Holy cow, do you realize that's next week already? And you can stop in anytime, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, all the time, and enjoy the great food and service at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Oberlin in Burley, the new home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Oh, by the way, I know a cowboy up on the mountain that's going to have a great big bull sale down here in Burley coming up on March 1st. That's Cordell Sheridan. He's going to have his 19th annual bull sale, 1 p.m. at the Burley Livestock Auction Yard, selling 70 head of really good bulls. These are bulls that have been out in the rocks, out in the brush. They're range-raised bulls and good ones. Gelbvieh, Angus, and Balancers. 20 head coming 2-year-olds. 50 head will be big, mature yearlings. First-year breeding season guarantee and free delivery up to 300 miles. You better be there. And that's going to be at the Burley Livestock Auction Yard on March 1st at 1 p.m. Sheridan Ranch 19th Annual Bull Sale. It's a good one. Okay. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. My tip of the cup. Good morning is, I want to celebrate some other people like we did yesterday. And we have so many nice people that listen to this program and follow this program daily. I think we'll have a little bit of the tip of the coffee cup to Jimmy and Frida Flowers this morning. Boy, they've been stalwarts with our lunch bunch and friends. Randy Wynn over at Tires West. Good old boy. And I'm going to just name the people that were on earlier for our Pledge of Allegiance. Dal and Helen Bradley. So a tip of the coffee cup to you folks this morning. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. We've got some fantastic listeners, and I really appreciate you. Real quick, Smilin' Max is going to have absolutely no energy shortage on the 22nd over at his place, Magic Valley Tires in Paul. 15th annual chili cook-off and free chili feed, February 22nd, and it's going to be right there at Magic Valley Tires. Smilin' Max also says we're going to have cinnamon rolls. They're going to judge the best chilies, so if you want to have your chili in the judge and get it over there by 10:30 in the morning, the big feed starts at 11 o'clock. Woo! Cash prizes to the top 3 chilies. You better get entered. Call Amber at 438-8444. Chili cook-off and chili feed on the 22nd. Smilin' Max. Good people. Don't forget Travel Loop Supply. They've got bolt bin route service. For some reason, every time I go to say bolt bin route service, I have trouble saying that. Kind of like Paladin, have bolts will travel. Well, Travel Loop Supply at 1050 West 203 South Hayburn, 438-8730. They will keep your bolt bins filled. They've got all the metric and the standard bolts. And they got the bins, too, by the way, for your shops in case you don't have a bolt bin rack. And all your filters and your Bubba ropes, they've got it all for you at Travel Loop Supply. They deliver the goods. Call them at 438-8730. Now it's time for the Capital Press Ag Minute. I'll be right back.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
The Idaho Department of Water Resources intends to notify eastern Snake Plain Aquifer groundwater users of a significant improvement in the state's water outlook. On January 28th, the department warned 1,700 stakeholders outlining potential groundwater curtailment scenarios. But on February 15th, a change in the weather improved snowpack in the upper Snake from 97% of median to 115% of median. Since early February, southern Idaho has been in the path of a band of moisture stretching from Hawaii. Snowpack also increased from 46 to 76% of median in the Big Wood Basin, 50 to 78% of the median in the Boise Basin, and 53 to 73% of the median in the Payette Basin.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West's Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and capitalpress.com.
Thank you very much, Capital Press. And calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear about this restaurant? And I believe it was down in Southern California. Some people walked into the restaurant and they sat down and looked at the menu, and then they started alerting everybody, including the news media, that in small lettering at the bottom of the menu, it stated that all personnel that were eating at the restaurant would be charged an additional 3% added onto the bill to help pay for the employees' insurance through Obamacare. Now, my question to you is, we're being forced into a forced gratuity at a lot of restaurants. They'll add 15 to 18% onto your bill, and we just sit back and we smile, even though the service might be absolutely lousy. And now, this is a new trend, and it's not the only place they're finding out where this is happening, that at the bottom in small print, that it says, you, the customer, will be charged 3% added onto the bill to help pay for the employee's insurance. What are your thoughts about this? I don't eat out that often. And since I got hurt, man, I would love to get out of this house and go to a restaurant, etc. But I am not going to be coerced into paying a forced gratuity. I'm not going to do it. Nope, I will not. I will go to only fast food restaurants if I have to. But if the service is great, I will pay a very, very fair gratuity, a tip. Possibly and more likely more than what it would be with the 15 to 18%. But along with the gratuity, now if restaurants go to, we're going to add another 3% down in the small print. What are your thoughts about all this? Forced gratuity and forced paying for the employees' insurance. There again, it all goes back to good old you and I, deep pockets, the Mr. and Mrs. American consumer. We're paying everything. What are your thoughts? Give me a call. Would you eat in that restaurant? Or would you lay the menu down and say, sorry, you wasted the experience on getting the water, but we're out of here? What are your...
I would leave.
Pardon me?
I would leave.
Now,
get up and leave.
You used to be a waitress.
Yep.
Okay. And we've talked about this, and I'm going to be very honest with you, that if the service is good, I will leave more than the 15 to possibly 18% gratuity. I won't be told, though, Gina. I will not be told, or I won't leave anything. And then to have this added onto the bottom of the bill, 3% to help pay for Obama's insurance, that really upsets me.
As a former waitress, and I would have a hard time working for a restaurant that actually put that on the bottom, because it would be my responsibility to make sure that my health care is paid for. If the customers want to give me a tip to help me out with that, because I'm giving them good service, that is on me.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
It's not on the customer to automatically give that to me.
Don't you think, though, honestly, short answer on this, don't you think that it's almost cheapening and lessening the value of the restaurant and the workforce at the restaurant by even like pandering to put it on the menu?
Absolutely. I honestly do. I think it just cheapens the whole experience.
I do, too.
Got a phone call.
Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb, and a happy birthday to Deanne from Mary and I.
That was nice. Thank you very much. I know she appreciates it.
And the Overhill gang like the rest of us.
Don't you tell her that. Okay.
Oh, I won't. Don't worry.
What can I do for you, Tony?
I'm glad you brought that thing up about the restaurants, because the first thing I'm going to do from now on is look at the bottom of the menu.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if I do find that... I'll be a little loud about it, and I'll just say I'm not going to be. I just don't like extortion, and I will not eat here again. And sooner or later, somebody's going to ask me, "Hey, buddy, what happened?" and I'll say, look at the bottom of the menu.
Yeah, they get away with it because it is printed in the menu, and the restaurants, legally can get away with doing it because it is, quote-unquote, posted for public viewing, even though a lot of us might skim over and say, hey, I'll have a New York steak with mashed potatoes or whatever, and not see that. But they get away with it because it's posted legally or announced legally in their menu. But I, for one, I'm going to get up, leave the restaurant, and not ever do business there again with forced gratuities and added on money for insurance coverage.
Well, this is Obamacare tax. That's all this is.
Yeah.
So we're paying enough for Obamacare right now, even though we don't use it.
Well, it's, Tony, there's so many hidden things that are going on that come back to you and I. It always ends up in the billfold or the purse of the consumer. Everything comes back to us. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to be talking about that Senate hearing yesterday when they were talking about electricity rates. And that will just absolutely make your heart flutter, let me tell you. It all comes back on us through the incompetency and the idiocy of our elected leaders.
Well, I get sick when I go down to our local market and see people running out here with 2 baskets full of food and driving away in a brand new car.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Tony, you and Mary you're special folks to us, and we appreciate it. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
You betcha. Barry Equipment and Rental. We stopped in a couple of weeks ago and saw old Eli. There's a guy. I'm telling you what, great big guy, just strong as an ox, and he just loves the great outdoors. And he's telling everybody they've got tractors. That's right. They got a few remaining Bobcat tractors. They've got a 35 horsepower with a loader for just $15,950 at Barry Equipment and Rental. You better call them. 2 numbers in Twin, 732-7368, Burley, 678-7368, and they also have a cab 40 horsepower tractor with heat and air for just $26,950. Ooh, and nice tractors with financing available. Barry Equipment and Rental in Twin Falls on Addison Avenue, and right there going into Burley on Highway 30. You stop in and tell them Zeb sent you. These are really good people. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. How many of you folks were watching the news yesterday and paying a little bit of attention to that Senate hearing on energy and the costs of electricity? Well, like I said, I'm a news junkie, and I about fell out of my geezer chair when I heard at the Senate hearing a representative of the Obama administration and the power companies was asked how much would electricity go up with the coal-fired plant closures, the estimated closures per year in the United States to eventually kill the coal industry. And this guy stuttered and stammered for a few minutes, and then he said 70 to 80%. Now, wait a minute, my heart just skipped a beat again. I got to get myself all plugged in. 70 to 80% increase to the consumer for electricity because of this man, Obama's ideology, this man's vindictiveness to run the world with a windmill and a solar-powered panel, this man that absolutely wants to put America back into the third-rate country status, and we're going to be paying up to 70 to 80% more for electricity. I don't know about you, but I was so outraged when I heard that. I went to my office and I started to call people. I tried to get a hold of this guy that was on television at that Senate hearing, leave a message. I mean, I'm frustrated. And you know what it boils down to? And a disagreement with me if you wish. It boils down to that it's our fault. It's your fault. It's my fault. Because we have not forced our politicians, our employees, to toe the line. Now, I mentioned earlier about the Lincoln Day banquet. Honestly, there is a golden opportunity for you folks to just go right up to our state legislators. I'm sure we're going to have some of the national people here. I'd be willing to bet you any money that Mike Simpson's going to be there, etc. Probably won't talk to me. That's okay. I'll live. But go and get right in their face and ask them questions about why and demand answers. And don't stand there and say, and let them say to you, well, when I get back to my office, I'll do some research into this, and then I'll send you a letter. No, all that is a cop-out. They know the answers and they know the problems. Make them look you in the eye and answer at that time. Make them answer at that time. They work for us. Oh, it's frustrating. Really frustrating. Oh, by the way, I know something that's going on, and this is going to take me just a minute because I lost the copy. There, I finally found. What is lost is now found. Thank you. Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls, is having a great big customer appreciation sale, and it starts tomorrow and goes through the 23rd. Holy smokes. It's the Sportsman's Warehouse annual customer appreciation sale, 10% off on what you need for camping and hunting and fishing, on the rods and reels, sleeping bags, tents, binoculars, spotting scopes, shoes, everything. Save money. It's the big annual customer appreciation sale at Sportsman's Warehouse, my store. I love that store. At Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. You stop in and see them today. Come on, let's get some calls in here. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. 80% more on our electricity. 80% more minimum. I don't know, folks. I just don't know. By the way, how many of you have been watching the Olympics? Raise your hands. Keep one on the steering wheel if you're driving. I finally found an event at the Winter Olympics that I could really get into. And I can already hear Al Butler going, oh, no, oh, no. That two-man bobsled. Man, I could get into that. I really could get into that. I want to be the steer rower. I want to be the guy that jumps in first and grabs a hold, and steers. I want to be the guy going last that has to jump in, the brake man, and then he rides all hunched over down the course. He sticks his head way down low. He doesn't see anything, get to enjoy the scenery or the cheers or the flags going by. He just kind of like hermetizes himself way in the bottom of that sled. I want to be that guy that drives that puppy. And they're going 85 to 90 miles an hour. I would just absolutely get a kick out of that. And
I think if I was riding with you on that one, I would want to be the brake guy, and I wouldn't want to see where you're driving.
Why is it that you have never, ever ridden in a vehicle with me? And that's the truth. You've never been anywhere near machinery with me, but yet you follow like the rest of the sheep to the slaughter in just absolutely denouncing me on my wishes and my dreams.
Because I've heard horror stories of your driving.
Do you believe everything you hear?
No, actually. But when it comes from certain people, I have a tendency to honor what they have to say.
The only problem I got is with the start. I've got a problem with the start. There's this handle that the driver has to hold on to, and then when the guy in the back, the brakeman, and they go 1, 2, 3, and then they run like the Dickens. Mm-hmm. Well, see, now there's the problem, because the brakeman's going to be dragging me.
No, wait. Yeah, that'd be, honestly, I like the bobsled. Have you seen the one with the skeleton one where it's just the one guy going down?
Oh, no, I'm not doing that one. No. You're talking about where they lay on their stomach and go down the hill?
Yes. Yeah.
No, I have made a concentrated effort not to watch that because it gives me really nightmares.
When you're going down that course and everything, and all of these corners are coming at you face first, I don't think I could do that one. And one sport that I actually do enjoy watching and was the Super G. Skiing with the Super G, and then the brand new one, which is a slope style ski competition. That was cool.
No, I thought that this two-man bobsled, now that's my event. And if there was a way I could figure out, now I could jump in it, that's not a problem. But the running for about, 75, 80 feet, that ain't going to work. And but once I get in that thing, can you imagine going down that course at 85 miles an hour? I mean, I would just absolutely relish the opportunity to drive one of those bobsleds.
That would be kind of cool. And, when they're going around some of those corners, the G-forces that they're hitting is just, incredible. So I don't think I would want to do that.
Did you see the Jamaican team last night?
No, actually.
Yeah, Now, over in Jamaica, I ask you this question, news lady that used to be on TV with the news and everything. I'll bet you $100 bill right now that you ain't going to find too many bobsled iced runs in Jamaica to practice.
No. And remember, of course, back in the 80s when they had the Olympics in the 80s, and it was the Jamaican bobsled team, and everybody was heckling them?
Yeah.
Well, and it's crazy that they're still around, but honestly, they're a great team.
Yeah, and last night after they got done, and they hit the wall a bunch of times, and I guess every time you hit the wall, it really slows you down. And one of the guys with NBC News last night interviewed the two guys from Jamaica, and the one guy, and they came in dead last, and the one guy said, man, it's cold here, we got to go back to Jamaica. It's like, holy cow, we've had enough of this Olympics, let's go home.
My question is this: where in the heck do they train?
I have no idea. But
seriously,
you should have seen these guys. They were bigger than NFL linebackers. I'm not kidding you. They had muscles where a lot of guys don't have places. And even the guy that was doing the color commentary for the bobsled, he said the Jamaican team probably are the two biggest, strongest, most muscular guys in the entire competition. But where do they practice? How do they practice? I haven't got a clue.
I think I'm going to have to look that up because a lot of teams, they'll practice with other teams and other nations, but I'm going to have to look that up.
They were even coming down the course sideways a little bit last night.
Really?
Which I would imagine, now seriously, think about this. You're going 85 miles an hour, all of a sudden your driver decides to hit a bump and go sideways. That would give me great concern.
My question is, do they practice the run? Do they get a practice run?
Oh, I'm sure that they, got there early enough to get their bobsled ready to go. It was all painted up fancy green and black that said Jamaica and everything. But what do they do? Do they practice on the sand on a little beach hill in Jamaica or what? I don't know. I have no clue.
I'm actually looking this up.
Okay. While you're doing that, it's time for the weather and also more phone calls. Give us a jingle, and bringing you the weather update this hour is Butte Irrigation. Hello, Bryce. How are you doing and the rest of your crew? They've been serving Magic Valley since 1975. All your irrigation needs, and like they say, they'll get you wet. Absolutely. Butte Irrigation at 116 South, 600 West of Paul, and their new location just a little bit north of Kimberly, right there at Red Cap Corner. Can't miss them. They don't want you to miss them. They want you to stop in and talk irrigation needs at Butte Irrigation. Here's MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Looks like we got winter working its way back toward the Magic Valley. Cloudy today. No precipitation in the forecast, and temperatures are still going to be slightly on the mild side. Now, Wednesday, chance of snow, 39 for the high. You're going to come out of it Wednesday night going in Thursday with windy conditions as the wind gusts to possibly about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Otherwise, we've got a short break from spring before spring actually gets here, and we're still in winter, and you'll see that when we get to tomorrow.
All right.
Enjoy the day. Enjoy the weather. Don't know weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Butte Irrigation bringing you MichaelRogersWeather.com. Paul and Kimberly, they'll get you wet. All right, give us some calls, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear what Obama did in California? I mean, maybe I'm being way too picky. Maybe I shouldn't even complain about this. Maybe I should just sit back and say, oh, well, no big deal. But he goes down and he visits the drought areas of California, okay? And he supposedly visits with the farmers and the ranchers in this drought area and shows such great sympathy for what they're going through with the drought and everything. But never once in the conversation did he come out and say, well, we're sorry on behalf of the liberal environmentalists that we drained your reservoirs, that you could have used the water in a drought situation because of the little bitty fishies that the environmentalists didn't want to get chewed up in the pumps. Never once did he say that. And I also lay the blame on the farmers and ranchers down there in California. I do, and I know some people are going to be upset about this. But they had a golden opportunity to look him in the eye. He's the President of the United States, but he's not a sacred cow. And when he started spewing about giving money for this, that, and the other, why didn't somebody stand up and say, why don't you release or reduce some of the stupid, frivolous regulations which caused this? We would have had enough money in our reservoirs if you wouldn't have saved it or moved it for these little bitty smelt that are worthless. We would have had irrigation water. But nobody stood up and nobody tested him. It almost seems like, oh, the president is here. Why, we must revere him. We must lay palm fronds on the road as he walks from his limousine to over by our head gate. Why, we must bow in reverence. Boy! It's his administration and the liberal environmentalists that have caused this problem. Why not confront them and get some answers? And then he leaves with all of his entourage. And if you look in the background while he's doing the speaking to the farmers and everything, you'll notice a whole line of white kind of panel trucks, Chevy panel trucks, that were part of his entourage while he's traveling. And then he goes and plays golf just a little ways down the road. And the golf course, very green, very nice, irrigated golf course, while these farmers are standing there in the middle of a drought. You talk about ambiguous. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, Zeb, this global warming and this drought, and it's all created by, global warming, climate change.
Yeah.
And, a couple of years ago, they had this hysterical idea that in Texas that things may never recover. Remember in Georgia, they had reservoirs down there that were for drinking water for the cities, and they were drying up. And, it's been snowing in Georgia, snowing in Texas, and the whole thing has since passed from our thoughts because it always corrects itself. It's cyclical. And anybody that believes otherwise is obviously uninformed or, a useful idiot.
Yep.
And so, it's just like California, once it starts raining, they will have forgotten about it, but right now they're going to jump on it.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Randy. Randy, wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute, I got to ask you this. Now, seriously, if you were one of those farmers, if you were walking along talking to the president, would you not have enough backbone to at least bring up something to this effect and say, Mr. President, why didn't your administration tell the environmentalists to go take a hike and let us have the water out of our reservoirs so we didn't have this problem?
Yeah, the Delta smells. Yes. Why these people are so afraid? Why are we afraid to ask the questions that matter? We are going to stand here and we are going to be afraid that we're going to look foolish or offend somebody. And in the meantime, one day we're going to wake up and they're going to have us, by what.
Yep.
And so, I tell you what, Zeb, I just pray that we can find the gumption, the guts, something so we can do something before it's too late and we're standing here deciding whether or not we're going to take up arms and there'll be blood in the street and you go, oh, it'll never get there. Well, I don't know. If he was to declare martial law, the anger would, people might wake up, but I don't know. One more thing and I'm going to hang up. Brian Smith, he's running against Mike Simpson. Mike Simpson and his Boulder White Clouds thing, it's a fiasco, it's a joke. We need to access our public lands in this state for every reason there is. Money,
absolutely.
Lumber. But he's going to be in Burke on Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the City Hall building. If you want to come and listen to a man who has a plan, who has, he's going to stick to his guns, come and be there on Wednesday night at 7.
All right, Randy, and I appreciate all your information, sir. God bless. Have a good day. Thank you very much. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good morning, Zeb. This morning.
Well, hello, Monty. I got about 2.5 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. I mean, this global warming and everything, they said on Fox News the other day that 49 out of the 50 states had snow on them at some place.
That's right.
And the only state that didn't was Florida.
Yep.
And, I have a stepdaughter who is way. She's in the left. She's not in the left field. She's in the top row of the bleachers on the left side of left field. And this shows the hypocrisy of the liberal and these environmentalists. She works for the Sierra Club, which is a real thorn in my side. And here a while back, she flies to Salt Lake to visit her uncle. What about the carbon credits on that? Drives to Idaho in her Subaru. What about the carbon credits for that? And the real thing that just blows me away is she's going to fly to Europe this summer and backpack across Europe, which is a wonderful thing to go do for a young person. But what about all these carbon credits that they're racking up while she's traveling all over the world that you and I shouldn't be driving diesel pickups and going to a rope?
Yeah, and there's something else there, Bonnie, too, is that her and others need to sit down and really analyze where they're at their age and look ahead 10 to 20 years. And when you have somebody at a Senate hearing say that by closing down the coal-fired plants that are our electricity grid wherewithal, and closing those down is going to possibly raise electricity rates 70 to 80%, they've got to realize she's got to think about maybe not plugging in her hair curler or anything else. This is all a very vindictive plan against humanity that the environmentalists and these idiots with the Obama administration, through their ideology, want to set this country back into a third world nation. And I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody like her or anyone else.
Well, Zeb, I think the next time she comes to visit, I think we ought to have a barbecue at my house.
I'm coming.
All right. You have a good day. Until the end, happy birthday.
I will, Monty. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
oh, my goodness. I got to tell everybody about, I'm late. I got to get my Founders Day celebration in. My goodness sakes, what's going on over at Les Schwab? Founders Day celebration in honor of Mr. Les Schwab. Holy smokes, that great, great man started the Les Schwab Tire Centers, and what a job he did. And right now, they're having the very best buys on everything. Founders Day celebration, save money on all the tires. You can get passenger car tires as low as $39.99, and they've got the best tire value promise in the industry, the best brake service. Oh, I'm telling you, they're so good. Front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries, all of this, and much, much more. And all you got to do is just stop into any one of the 7 locations with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, John on Poline, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best. Your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. I'm late. Got to run. News next. I'll be back in 6. Holy cow. Jumping from one side of the hill to the other on a snow machine? Whoa! Didn't know you were here. Good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell. Zeb at the Ranch was our great sponsor, major sponsor, our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. I love my pillow, that memory foam pillow. And, of course, our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste.
That's right, they always are at your disposal. Western Waste Services, don't forget, give them a call today. Get on the route service to pick your garbage up. Get it out of there. It's gone. 734-6969. Don't forget, they've got all the dumpsters in various sizes. Leave one at your place, fill it up, call them, they'll come get it. They are very helpful, and they've got the Go Minis portable storage units, too. Don't forget, they can help you with anything. Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Always at your disposal. And ladies and gentlemen, also another sponsor that has been absolutely critical in serving all of the folks around the Magic Valley, and that's, of course, Hanson Mortuary, with our dear friend Joel Heward, owner-manager at 710 6th Street in Rupert. And as I've said many, many, many times, they always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity in serving you and your family when there's the loss of a loved one. And when there's the passing of a loved one, there's such a short period of time to kind of dot all the I's and cross all the T's. They can help. They will help. Please give them a call. 436-5636, Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. We're going to go to the phone lines right now, and I'm very honored to have back on this program. He's been here before, and every time I say his name, I'm always a little tentative because I don't want to make him mad at me. I'm afraid I might mispronounce it. I'm going to say good morning to George Mason University law professor Ilya Solman. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me, and for what it's worth, you got the name right.
It's worth a lot to me, let me tell you. I'm always a little tentative. You don't mind if I call you Ilya, or do you refer to yourself as Mr. Solman? I'm not very formal on this program.
I think Ilya is fine, though I'm tempted to imitate Henry Kissinger and say that I should be addressed as Your Excellency, but I think Ilya is probably the best.
And you know something, Ilya? You won't go that far on my program. But anyhow, okay. You are co-author of a book, and it's called Conspiracy Against Obamacare. And I have got to get a copy of this book. And what about the sub-headline, the Volkswagen conspiracy and healthcare case? Explain that to me.
Yeah, the Volkswagen Conspiracy is a blog where I write regularly along with a number of other law professors. It's called the Volkswagen Conspiracy because it was founded by law professor Eugene Volokh and his brother Sasha Volokh. And many of us wrote extensively about the Obamacare litigation while it was going on, and several of us also developed arguments on the blog that later played a role in the case against Obamacare. So the book is about our role in the litigation and also about the case itself and its impact, and also the role of the Internet and the blogosphere in influencing the case, because this is perhaps the first major Supreme Court case where many of the arguments and debates around it were first developed in the blogosphere.
All right. Now, Ilya, I'm going to ask you this question, and bear with me, but you're the expert, and I'm just a simple old cowboy from Idaho. How come when the Obamacare package of what it would do and what it was, when it was sent to the Supreme Court, and they finally okayed it as, yes, they would stand behind it, it was legal, and they said, okay, you can go ahead and perpetrate this to the American public. My question is, from that point, how come it was not illegal for Obama to change what was in there that the Supreme Court okayed? He has changed it at least 29 times. Why, my friend, is then Obamacare not null and void?
So I think the law is still on the books, even if the president isn't enforcing parts of it. But I do agree that some of what he's doing is illegal. It's one thing for him to say, I'm the executive and there are parts of it that I'm just not going to enforce for now. It's another thing for him to actually announce that some parts of the law just simply won't apply for a year or two, as he has done. The executive can always say, you know, we recognize that what certain people are doing is illegal, but we're not going to prosecute them. But Obama has gone beyond that and said that he has the power to rule that things that otherwise are forbidden by the law will be actually legal, at least for a year or two. And obviously, if he can say that for a year or two, why not for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and so on? So I agree that some of what he's doing is very legally dubious. I don't think it changes the fact that the law is on the books, but it is very troubling nonetheless.
Why hasn't someone, whether it's a congressman, a group of congressmen, or senators, or a multiplicity of both, why haven't they challenged the president on this? Why do we at this time in our history have what I would say is a Congress with absolutely no backbone? Does anybody realize what this man's doing?
So a lot of people, both in Congress and outside of it, have attacked the president on this and have pointed out that some of what he's doing is likely illegal. But obviously right now Congress is divided. The Democrats control the Senate, the Republicans the House, and it's also clear that so far at least the Democrats don't actually want to curb what Obama is doing. So I think Congress has only been able to partially challenge Obama on this because Congress itself is divided. and the same can be said for public opinion. The majority of the public doesn't like Obamacare, but it's at least so far a relatively narrow majority, so it's not enough to force the president to change course to a great degree.
Okay, but what about Obamacare? Give me your thoughts on it. I mean, you're a student of what Obamacare is and what it isn't, what it will do and what it won't do. I want to hear what you think of Obamacare from the get-go to where we are now. Tell me what your thoughts are.
So I've never been a fan of it. I think it probably would cause more harm than good. As to what will happen with it in the future, I'm honestly somewhat unsure. After the Supreme Court case in the 2012 election, most observers thought that Obamacare was going to survive and be implemented, that the political fight over it was over. But to be honest, it's obvious that we were wrong about that this continues to be unpopular. The president is showing that he believes that it's not advantageous for him and the Democrats to actually put all of it into effect, at least not right now. So I think its future is very much up in the air. It depends very much on what happens over the next couple of years, who wins the next couple of elections for Congress and the presidency, and also on where public opinion is. It's really an amazing situation because usually when a law this large passes, it has broader support than Obamacare does, and therefore it becomes difficult or almost impossible to repeal. It's possible that that will eventually happen with Obamacare, but certainly that scenario seems less likely now than most people thought it would be a year or two ago.
Ilya, as you look ahead, and we're just literally months away from the midterm elections, which I think, quite frankly, are going to be the most important midterm elections ever held in this country ever. When you look ahead to the November balloting, and you look at what is the albatross around all the Democrats' necks right now, and that's Obamacare, and then all of a sudden, in the last couple of days, I will say that they're not stupid, the Obama administration and their ideologues have come out now with global warming, climate change, and all the other cover-up the crises. Do you think they're going to use that, climate change, to overshadow Obamacare going into the November elections?
So I don't know what their strategy is going to be. I think it would be difficult for them to overshadow Obamacare entirely with anything else. But obviously there will be other issues in the election, and to some extent what we're seeing is we have a competition between a president and his party who are not very popular, and an opposition party which is also unpopular, probably for different reasons. So we'll see which unpopular party is the last one standing come the 2014 election. As you look at Obamacare, and I'm sure, have you read the entirety of Obamacare? Did you read all 2,700 pages? To be honest, I have to admit that I haven't. I don't know that there's any living person who has read all 2,700 pages, and reading it all would mean reading a lot of stuff that really just isn't comprehensible if you just read it straight through.
When you look at the overall bill, though, Obamacare, and I've had many doctors, I've had Dr. Elena George from Atlanta, Georgia on my program. I've had many others on this program that are absolutely scared to death about Obamacare and what it's going to do to one specific group, and that's our senior citizens. It's almost like throwing them out and fend for yourselves. What are your major concerns about what Obamacare will do forever to hurt this country, the United States?
So I think there's a lot of problems with Obamacare. To my mind, the biggest one is that it makes insurance more expensive for a large portion of the public, and it diminishes competition in an already insufficiently competitive insurance market. So instead of making insurance cheaper and easier to get, it's actually making it more costly and diminishing consumer choice. And I think, ultimately we should be moving in the opposite direction from which it is moving, though I would say the one possibly good aspect of Obamacare is one that you criticized a moment ago, which is I think there was at least some attempt there to control what are now clearly the out-of-control costs of Medicare. That's, to my mind, one of the few beneficial aspects of this legislation.
Okay.
So I don't yet know whether it's going to work or not.
But with that, though, Ilya, with the cost of Medicaid and Medicare, What about the young people? What about the students that you talk to at George Mason? What about other students and young people in the area? They're not signing up. They don't care. They're not nervous about it. They realize that if they don't sign up and then all of a sudden if something happens to them, they can automatically be accepted. Where is the urgency to get them to pay and start paying for this insurance program? If they don't join up, it's not going to work.
I agree. I think Obamacare insurance is a bad deal for a lot of young people, even for a lot of people my age as well. I'm in my 40s, so I think that's one of the many serious problems with it.
Okay, now, when people read the book, A Conspiracy Against Obamacare, what is the thought process that you want them to take away when they finish and close the book? I mean, what do you want them to know from your expertise in writing this book?
The book is mostly about the constitutional argument, and if there's one point that I would want people to focus on, it is that if the constitutional argument for Obamacare is correct, then there's virtually no limit to what Congress can do or what it can regulate or what kind of mandates it can impose on people. That, I think, is the heart of the reason why this is so problematic from the point of view of the Constitution.
So if I get your drift, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, if Obamacare goes through and is accepted with all the nuances that are going to put more regulations and more stipulations on the American public, then we might have something that would maybe come out about our eating habits, obesity, and the change of what we can buy in the food or the grocery store, etc. I mean, there's no limit to how they can regulate our lives. Is that what you're saying?
At least there's no structural limit. There might be some individual rights that would limit it, but if Congress can mandate that people buy health insurance because that has an effect on the economy, which was the argument the federal government was making, then they can just as easily mandate that we have to buy broccoli or that we exercise every day or pretty much any other example that you can give, because all of those things have an effect on the economy as well. Though I would note that much of this argument was actually rejected by the majority of the Supreme Court. They had to preserve Obamacare in a very roundabout way by calling the mandate a tax.
With the lack of money that Obamacare is bringing in, and believe me, the state of Oregon, with their state name for their program called Cover Oregon, they haven't signed up one single individual yet. This is a fiasco. If it doesn't work, what about the future as far as money for research for various diseases, cancer, etc.? I see our healthcare system just going into a basement. What are your thoughts?
So I think if Obamacare doesn't work, and so far at least it's not looking very good, then obviously there will be serious problems, and we will continue to have healthcare costs that rise without us getting anything like the sort of return that we would want to get for spending that much money.
Any final thoughts about your book this morning, and where can people obtain a copy?
So the best place to get one is online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can get it in paperback or also in the Kindle or ebook version, which is cheaper. I guess the final thought is that we have an ongoing debate in this country about how much power the federal government should have, and I think Obamacare shows the dangers of creating a system where the federal government can legislate on virtually any issue it wants. In a country as large and diverse as our own, we should want power to be less centralized than that.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question real quick before I let you go. Caller, real fast. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, yesterday I was listening to a program that talked Oklahoma is doing something, and there's 7 other states that are doing something, and I forget what it was. Could you remind me, maybe if you know, and I'll hang up?
Ilya, are you familiar with anything going on in those states?
So I'm not entirely sure what the caller is referring to. It is true, I believe, that Oklahoma and some other states are involved in various lawsuits challenging aspects of Obamacare now. I don't know if we have time to go into all of them, but there are several legal issues that are still being fought out in the courts right now, and the fate of those suits is uncertain.
Okay. I want to thank you very much, George Mason University law professor, co-author of the book called A Conspiracy Against Obamacare. Ilya, thank you so much for being on our program. Ilya Soman, please come back in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Very interesting gentleman with George Mason University Law School. He's a professor back there, and the book goes into and just absolutely goes in step by step by step as to what Obamacare is, what it isn't, and what it will do to our country, possibly permanently. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, when you think about life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, you probably said, I forgot to do that. I've got to check into that. Well, then you better do it right now. Here's the number to call Cameron and Siemens Insurance, 436-4424, 436-4424. Dean, Cameron, Todd Siemens, very dedicated and responsive to your needs, so please call them today. Make an appointment. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert, 436-4424. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a jingle on the landline. I'd like to hear from you. And while I am waiting for your call that I know is coming in, I want to remind you that tomorrow, on the 19th, don't forget, the 19th through the 23rd, great big customer appreciation sale at Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Holy cow, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard, you're going to find 10% off. What you need for camping this next spring or hunting or fishing or whatever. They've got sleeping bags, tents, binoculars, 10% off. It's the annual customer appreciation sale, the 19th through the 23rd at Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter, and it's located at 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. Okay? Get in there and say hello to them today. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And the lovely Gina Jameson running the board over there. And did you have your breakfast this morning?
I am currently eating, it's like a biscuits and gravy pot pie.
You're kidding me. What did you do, warm it up in the microwave?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, guess what I started again?
A diet.
Another great, big, huge diet.
And so what did you have for breakfast today?
Oh, this will get you started. I had a half a grapefruit.
Ooh.
A kind of a muffin where they took all the caloric content out of it. It was as dry as sand on a beach. And it was covered with one flimsy, easy-over egg.
That's it?
Yeah. And a cup of coffee. Yeah, I had a cup of coffee.
Did you have your slice of cheese yet?
Yep, just ate. No, I ate it at 9 o'clock, that slice of cheese. I did put on a little weight, you know, being in the wheelchair and being around my geezer chair. And now that I'm starting to get up and walk a little bit more, I thought, well, you know something? I'm going to take off about 10 or so pounds, get back to where I was. And so I started on the diet again.
So how does that cardboard taste anyway?
You know something, Gina? Right now, and last night, I was so hungry. My wife makes a special chicken dinner, and it's made with Italian tortellini shells, soft tortellini shells, smothered in a cream sauce with chicken added to it, and then hot biscuits with fresh strawberry jam, and these what they call Mediterranean vegetables in a special Mediterranean sauce. And you know what I had? Just terrible little pot pie that comes with this dumb diet that I almost said something I shouldn't have. And she ate the rest of the tortellini last night while I suffered with this piece of cardboard, like you said.
And you're looking across the table at her and looking at her plate and then looking at yours, and you give her these puppy dog eyes like, do I really have to eat this?
Yeah, but the bright spot is I had her hang all my Wranglers out in plain sight in the bedroom so I could look at them and remember the day.
Visual motivation.
Visual motivation.
Yes.
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
Well, okay, so I've been on a diet once or twice, and if I want to fit in a particular item, I put that item up on my wall, and I'm like, okay, this is my goal. I'm going to fit into that, so I get that visual motivation thing.
Well, it's kind of like when and I don't mean to sound crude, folks, but this is the way it is. I've had to sit around since January 7th.
Yeah.
And my butt started out the size of Rhode Island, but it's now starting to encroach on Connecticut.
Okay, I better go. I got to get the next caller on.
Okay. Okay. Hey, don't forget Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. And they just went through their great big President's Day sale. Oh, my goodness, with all the sofas and the love seats and the occasional tables and all the carpeting, the good carpeting, the better carpeting, and the best carpeting at varied prices for you, and all your vinyl flooring and your mattresses. What are you waiting for? I'll bet you if you go in there this morning, you'll still save all kinds of money because that President's Day sale was yesterday, and they're open and waiting for you today at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. And that's, of course, where you'll find the best in furniture, the best in carpeting and floor covering, and the nicest of people. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. You stop in and see them today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the phone lines right now, and we're going to be waiting until Gina gives us the high sign, and we have a lawyer with us with the Pacific Legal Foundation from over on the West Coast, and we're going to be talking to him momentarily. And before we get him on the air, I want to remind you about Let's Ride. That is where the fun is sold. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. They're open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 9 to 6. They have got the biggest selection of side-by-sides at Let's Ride in the entire state of Idaho. And all the ATVs are on sale. Spring's right around the corner. I can hear you cranking them up right now. And they've got dirt bikes for the young at heart. They still got the snowmobiles. We're still going to have snow up on the mountain. You better get up there. And the best in parts and service at Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, open Tuesdays through Saturdays where the fun is sold. Gina, do we have our guest on the phone?
Got him.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to have this gentleman, an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation, and I'd like to introduce him right now, Tony Francois. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good today. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, and I really appreciate your taking the time to come on the program. It's been quite some time since I've had someone from the Pacific Legal Foundation. Before we go too far, Tony, tell us exactly what is the Pacific Legal Foundation and what do you do?
Well, thanks, sir. The Pacific Legal Foundation is a nonprofit, public interest foundation that provides pro bono legal services to property owners and business owners who are dealing with either deprivations of their property by the government or overreaching environmental regulation by the government. We cover a couple of other areas as well, but those are the main areas in which I work. Defense of private property rights and balanced enforcement of environmental laws. We were started about 40 years ago by some aides to then Governor Reagan, and we have been soldiering away these past decades trying to protect people's property.
Well, Tony, I read the story that was in the Capital Press newspaper, and the headline was, "The Fed shutdown of a California farm threatens all farmers' rights." Naturally, that caught my eye, and so would you give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of what happened and how you're trying to fight this?
Absolutely. The story's actually pretty simple, and that's part of what's kind of alarming about it. Our clients are Duarte Nursery and their president, John Duarte. It's a family-owned farming company here in California. They bought a property near probably the best reference point would be Redding in Northern California, about an hour south of Redding. And it's, ranch or pasture land, although it's been farmed for wheat in the past, about 450 acres. And in the fall of 2012, they planted a winter wheat crop on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really not much more complicated than that. They did have an environmental consultant take a look at the property and give them some recommendations just to be really, careful in terms of the letter of the law about any potential wetlands on the property. And so they got those marked. There's a few areas that are what we call vernal pools, and they avoided those when they planted their crop. So here they are thinking they've done everything the right way, and lo and behold, in about a year ago today, February 25th of last year, they get a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers, which is the federal agency that issues wetlands permits, telling them that they've violated the wetlands laws by discharging dredged and fill material to wetlands without a permit, and attaching a list of the potential fines and potential jail sentences for violation of the Federal Clean Water Act. There are two things that really stand out about what happened to them. Obviously they get this order telling them to cease and desist all operations in what the Corps describes as waters of the United States. The Corps later clarified that they think the whole property has wetlands throughout it. And they did this without giving Duarte a hearing, any opportunity to set the record straight, to educate the Corps about the mistakes they were making with this property. The key fact, as we see it, is that they did not farm any wetlands. They avoided the few that their consultant identified for them. And they did not do what the Corps alleges they did, which is a practice called deep ripping. That's basically putting a long shank on the back of a tractor, and if you picture a large ditch witch going through a property.
Right.
It's something that's done to prep ground for planting orchards or vineyards. They didn't do that, and yet the Corps says we shut you down because we think you did that. Now, if you think of the run-of-the-mill, a traffic light infraction or a speeding ticket, when you get that ticket from the officer, that's not a final determination that you owe the fine. That is an opportunity, if you want it, to go and explain it to the judge. And if you've got facts that show that the officer was wrong, the judge will listen to you and correct it if a mistake has been made. On the other hand, if you are responsible, then the judge will finalize the fine and you'll owe it. That process is what the Constitution describes as due process, and that was deprived of, or Duarte's were deprived of that by the Corps in this case. And it's more than just a technical violation, because if the Corps had given them a hearing, even a fairly rudimentary one, the Corps would have learned that they were completely wrong about what they alleged that Duarte did.
Well, now,
the kicker to this is that the Corps takes the position now, well, we've issued this cease and desist letter, you have to stop farming. But we can sort all this out if you just apply for a permit. Now, the Duartes don't need a permit because their activity is normal farming practices, which are exempt under the Clean Water Act from these permit requirements. So the Corps' view of things is, well, if you don't think you need a permit or you didn't think you did anything wrong, you can just apply for an after-the-fact permit. That'll take, on average, a couple of years and $250,000 in consulting fees.
Oh, my.
And at the end of that, if your position was you didn't need a permit all along, well, you can sue us to get a determination that you didn't need the permit that you just spent 2 years and $250,000 applying for.
Oh, my Lord.
So if that sounds crazy, it is. And the basic problem that the Corps has created for the Duartes, and which they can create for anybody, is by issuing this cease and desist order, they've forced the Duartes to cease farming the property. The Duartes can't get back in to resume farming the property until the Corps removes the cease and desist order. And the Corps has said, well, you have to do this multi-year permit process. And that's just completely inadequate, especially if your activity, normal farming practices, don't require the permit in the first place.
Absolutely.
So rather than getting sucked into that unnecessary permitting process, what we've done is filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of Duarte Nursery and John Duarte to get a judicial declaration that the Corps violated Duarte's due process rights by imposing the cease and desist order without a hearing.
I've got 1,000 questions for you, and we also have a caller waiting on the line with a quick question, so I'm going to go to the phone line. Caller, make it fast, make it brief. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you help people with mining claims?
Well, we do a variety of different types of representation. Mining is definitely something that we've spent a lot of time with. And the way that people generally can try to access our services, if you go to our website, pacificlegal.org, then there's a section there where you can submit a public inquiry and just describe the situation that you're dealing with, and one of our attorneys will take a look at it and be back in touch with you. We are a nonprofit. We're we do our work based on the generosity of donors across the country, and so we're not in a position to take every case that we get inquiries about. We try to focus our work on cases that will set precedents that will help not just the person we're directly representing, but everybody similarly situated, that would limit the government's ability to overreach them.
All right. Thank you, caller. I appreciate it.
Hopefully that answers your questions.
All right. Thank you, caller. Tony, now I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm going to ask some probably very naive questions about this case. But when I read this, now I'm assuming this is privately owned property by the Duartes and not a leased situation. Which is it?
Oh, they own it outright. It's their property.
All right. So they've owned this property, and they farmed it for how many years prior to this problem?
Well, they bought it in 2012.
Okay. And so
the first year that they farmed it was the fall of 2012. And it was then in that winter that they were told by the Army Corps to stop farming it.
I guess the point I'm going at, was it farmed before that by a previous owner?
Well, it certainly was. In fact, the Duartes were able to confirm with the County Farm Service Agency that there's a wheat base applicable to the property. It's been enrolled in the federal wheat program. So clearly it's been farmed, several hundred acres of it, in wheat in the past. Exactly how recently? Yeah, I'm not sure. But that's probably not a relevant question. It is, however, part of what the Corps is up to here. And I mentioned earlier that the Clean Water Act exempts normal farming practices from the permitting, the wetlands permitting requirements in the Federal Clean Water Act. And so, many farmers may not even be aware, because they've never had to go get wetlands permits from the Corps of Engineers to farm their property. But many farmers are aware that there is this exemption in place. If you stop and think about, given the onerousness of obtaining these permits, I think, as I mentioned in the Capital Press article, if Congress had said every farmer needs to go get permission from the Corps of Engineers to farm, we would not be feeding ourselves.
That's right.
We would not be coming close to it.
That's right.
And so in their limited wisdom, Congress has, at least with respect to farming said you don't need a permit for this. What the Corps has done, in this case as an example of it, is they have increasingly tried to interpret that exemption as a very narrow, very technical kind of thing. And so what they have said in this case is, if you weren't farming it last year, then nothing you do this year is normal farming practices. If you had it in pasture or rangeland last year, then planting a field crop on it this year is not normal farming practices, not normal for you. If it's in a field crop like wheat or corn, silage corn, and you decide you're going to clear it and prep it and plant some kind of row crop on it, that's not normal farming practices. If you decide that you're going to plant permanent crops like orchards, that, in the Corps of Engineers' view, is not normal farming practices. So essentially what they've said is, we'll put up with you doing exactly what you've always done, but we don't think that anything new or different in your farming practices is normal farming practices, and therefore we're going to require you to get a permit, a wetlands permit. Well, that can't be what Congress intended. Okay, this is not, some small thing where they're giving, some little technical benefit to a limited group of people.
Yeah, but Tony, let me interrupt you right there. Let me interrupt you.
So America can feed itself.
Let me interrupt you with a question right there, and pardon my interruption, but you just raised a very important point with me. We had a case in northern Idaho not too long ago about a couple that wanted to build, and all of a sudden the government came in on their property and said, well, no, it's a wetlands, and they stymied that, and they finally had to go to the Supreme Court to get the value of their and the use of their property back. But as a lawyer, how do you define, or what is the definition of wetlands? You can create a wetland by leaving a hose running. How do they define wetlands, and what you're doing is wrong or illegal?
Well, it's a very good question. I think you're referencing the Sackett case.
Yes, I am.
Pacific Legal Foundation actually had the honor of representing them in the U.S. Supreme Court and winning that case. The Corps of Engineers and the EPA, which is their sister agency, both of them have jurisdiction over wetlands, are very ambiguous in what isn't a federally regulated wetland. And the courts have observed this, that it's very ad hoc, and that in many, many cases it seems to rest on the subjective professional opinion of the regulatory staff. So this is not the type of thing that, sort of, if you know the expression, you know it when you see it. Yeah, you don't necessarily know it when you see it when it comes to what the Corps will require you to get a permit for. The Duarte's property is slightly rolling, red dirt clay, upland farmland. It's not a marsh, it's not a bog, it's not duck habitat. I mean, this is not something you drive up to and think, I wonder if there's a mosquito problem here in the summer. And so what the Corps has repeatedly tried to do is expand its jurisdiction beyond the core, if you will, of what Congress expects them to regulate, are the actually navigable rivers and lakes that are still used for commerce and recreation. Think about the Snake River. Okay, well, the Snake River has a lot of small tributaries that aren't themselves navigable, and then if you go farther upland, there are smaller and smaller drainages that contribute a little bit of water to those tributaries.
Right.
And what the Corps would like to be able to do is follow those all the way up as far as they can go. They're currently actually trying to amend their regulations to say that any connection between a navigable river or lake and even what we would easily look at and describe as isolated wetlands renders it subject to their regulation. So where they are trying to take this would allow them to regulate landscaping projects in your backyard if there's a drainage swale in it. Because that drainage swale leads to the curb, leads to the storm drain, leads to, the neck bones connected to the shoulder bone, and on and on and on. This is not the scope of authority that the Constitution gives them. It's not the scope of the authority that Congress established in the Clean Water Act, and yet they keep trying to push the envelope.
Well, Tony, how far-reaching, and I'm not trying to create a problem or instigate a bigger problem, but how far-reaching is this case right now, to the point where the feds make a mistake and there is said that basically the Duarte family is obliged to live with the heir and pay for the fines, pay for the permits? What about Idaho? What about Texas? What about Montana? What about Utah? I mean, this could happen anywhere, and we could see the same scenario on private property or the diminishment of value of private property.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing about this case that makes it peculiar to California. It is a very simple set of facts. They planted a winter wheat crop. The Corps claims erroneously that they, in the process of doing that, got, basically soil into what the Corps considers to be jurisdictional wetlands, and that none of these are subject to the normal farming practices exemption. So it's really probably just a question of how aggressive any particular local district's enforcement staff are, and so, one of the dangers in this activity is that if there's property that, say, somebody wants to be included in a mitigation bank or a wetlands preserve or a wildlife refuge or something like this, well, if the Corps can willy-nilly just drop a cease and desist order on you and your property with no hearing, no judicial review, nothing you can do but get sucked into their lengthy and expensive permit process.
Wow.
They can use that with impunity, not to enforce the wetlands laws, but just to leverage you into making a deal, whether it's with some local land trust or a wildlife agency or an environmental group, or with them, because you've got suddenly no options. I mean, if you're the average family farmer, you don't have 2 years of no farming income that you can dedicate to getting a permit to get your farm back.
Well, what about
the leverage this gives them is remarkable. Well, that's why we had a hearing in the federal court last Monday that will likely produce a ruling in the very near future that says that this case can go forward. That the court did deprive the Duartes of property, and then the question will be, whether or not their due process rights was violated. So we're hopeful that this case will establish that the Corps can't use these cease and desist orders in this kind of drive-by fashion.
Right.
They've got to give you notice that they think you did something wrong. You get to review their evidence. You get to comment on it and present your own evidence. And all of that has to happen before they can lay one of these cease and desist orders on you.
What about the
that way, if they're just using it to leverage you for something else, they're not going to be able to.
Right.
And if there is an actual problem, you get early notice of that and a better opportunity to cure it before you're sucked into some worse type of enforcement action.
What about the Duarte family itself? I mean, this has had to be a gut-wrenching and mind-rendering event. I mean, did they have other farmland? Did they have other portions of their farm to make a living and raise the crop? Or what happened to the Duarte family during all this court case and this action?
Well, they've been able to continue working other property that they own, and they have a nursery business that you can check out at DuarteNursery.com. And they're fairly successful at that. This parcel that they bought in Redding or near Red Bluff was a kind of a diversification for them. So they're fortunate in this respect. This isn't their only piece of property, and they don't have everything tied up in it. They're outraged, though, at how they've been treated. And they also, I mean, they tell me that, what they hear from their friends, their neighbors, other farmers, is that they're not alone in this, that this kind of thing happens far more frequently, where the Corps will lean on people if they don't want them, for example, to increase the farming intensity of a given property, or just to show, that they're in charge. And most people they know of who've had to deal with this, it's their only property, it's their only income. And so they've been leveraged into complying with the Corps' demands. The Duarte's view of this is that, not just for themselves to vindicate their own rights with this property, but for their neighbors and for other farmers, not just in California, but really everywhere that the Corps regulates, to take a stand against the Corps, to push them back on this, and to establish the principle that the Corps can't simply drop one of these orders on you without a hearing.
Absolutely.
Complying with the due process.
Absolutely. Tony, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program, and I've only got about a minute left here. Give me a short answer on this. Is this case comparable or similar to what happened to the gentleman down in Fresno, California about 6, 7, 8 years ago when he ran over that kangaroo rat and they literally stopped him and forced him to shut down his farm? Isn't this kind of a comparable case?
Well, they're both examples of overreaching environmental regulation. We support a balanced approach to environmental regulation that meets the reasonable objectives for preserving the environment, but puts people first. And in that sense, these are very similar.
All right. Tony Francois, I appreciate it. You know you're going to hear from me again, attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Thank you so much for your time this morning. God's blessing, and you did a great job. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be on, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Interesting story, and very well presented by attorney Tony Francois with the Pacific Legal Foundation. It can happen here. It can happen anywhere. All of a sudden, the government, the Army Corps of Engineers, whomever, environmentalists, you're in the wetlands. Look at what happened in northern Idaho, and he reverted to that story and talked about it, about the husband and wife that couldn't build on their own property because of so-called wetlands. And I'm going to follow this case with the Duarte family. I know this family, and I'm definitely going to stay on top of this and see what happens with the Army Corps of Engineers and the claiming of a wetland. And they were wrong. They admitted their error, but they still said, you're going to pay the fine. Can you believe it? Hey, it's time for a weather update. Let's go to MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Looks like we got winter working its way back toward the Magic Valley. Cloudy today. No precipitation in the forecast, and temperatures are still going to be slightly on the mild side. Now, Wednesday, chance of snow. 39 for the high. You're going to come out of it Wednesday night going in Thursday with windy conditions as for wind gusts to possibly about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Otherwise, we've got a short break from spring before spring actually gets here, and we're still in winter, and you'll see that when we get to tomorrow. So enjoy the day, enjoy the weather. Similar weather you got.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for that weather update right here on Zeb at the Ranch. And very interesting guest, attorney Tony Francois with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Gina, no matter what happens in this country anymore, on our own private property, whatever, it seems like Big Brother has got his nose over our shoulder ready to shut us down at a moment's notice. Did you listen to that story?
I did listen to that story, and of course, that they either want to shut us down and take our property, or just take our property.
This family did nothing wrong.
No, they didn't.
They made sure they did all the proper paperwork and everything, and the feds with the Army Corps of Engineers came in later and said, no, but we made the mistake. We shouldn't have given you the fine, but now that we did, you got to live with the air and pay the property permit anyway. Can you believe the government can be that heavy-handed and admit they made a mistake, but yet not admit it to the point where they reverse the money? They want the money.
Of course, and that's what it all boils down to, Zeb. They want the money.
I'm just sickened by what we're allowing to happen in this country. And like I said earlier, and I wasn't being facetious when I was talking to him, somebody could leave a garden hose running in their front yard, and the feds might drive by and say it's a wetland.
Yeah, but they could, and they'll give you a fine.
There you go. We're going to take a little break for about 6 minutes and turn this over to ABC News, and they're going to come in with the news, and then coming up at 10:06, one of our very favorite features, and that's, of course, Dr. History with Dr. Ken Turner. And then at 10:30 this morning, we have a man that's running for Lieutenant Governor of the state of Idaho, Jim Chemlick, and I hope I said his name right. If I didn't, I'm sure he'll correct me. That's all coming up next hour. Don't go away. Zeb at the Ranch. Including, of course, our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our dear friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them 734-6969. We have been deluged on Facebook and emails with birthday wishes for Deanne, and Deanne wanted me to say thank you to everybody out there in the audience that was so nice to wish her a very happy birthday. That was really sweet of you. Appreciate that very much. Hey, don't forget the Chadwick Sports Grill. Oh, my goodness sakes, at 139 West Main. What have they got to eat today for lunch? They're going to have beef stroganoff for lunch, and then tonight at dinner, they're going to have one of my favorites, sweet and sour meatballs. Oh, man, the food's always great. People are super nice. The atmosphere, I love it. The Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Well, right now, we're going to take time to let him walk in the door. Just give him a couple seconds here. He's old, bent over, and he's going to go over and sit. There he is. He just made it into his chair and opened up the big book. And now, ladies and gentlemen, as he pushes the microphone over in front of him, here he is, the old Dr. History.
Good morning, Zeb. It's a good thing we're doing this by telephone, or people would really think that I'm hobbling in there.
Well, I saw you the other day, and you're doing well for your age.
Oh, thank you. I can still get up and down and play a little basketball, you know.
More than I can.
That's right. How you doing, Zeb?
Well, I'm getting better every day. I'm not going to go out and be able to play basketball with you for a while, but we're getting better every day. Every day is a new experience, and I'm just real optimistic that it's going to be not that very much longer, hopefully not another month, and I'll be able to maybe get on horses.
That would be great. I know you've got a goal set there, so...
I do.
You'll make it.
Well, now, you have a goal also, and that's every week of coming on this program and giving us some really neat stories of days gone by, and that's why they call you Dr. History. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to go back a little over 200 years.
Oh, my.
Today.
Now, you were there and wrote this down, right?
Ways, and we're going to, over the years, you've asked me, whatever happened to so-and-so or their family or their kids or this and that. Mm-hmm. And today, we're going to talk about a guy by the name of Baptiste Charbonneau.
Really?
Okay. Do you remember who he was?
Yeah, didn't they name a wine after him?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No, this, okay, we'll just get into it, and you'll find out. So... of all the strange tales that come out of the Old West, perhaps none is more extraordinary than the fabulous, the true story of Sacagawea's son. Okay? And now, as an infant in his cradle board, he had the unique distinction of being the only child, and his 17-year-old mother, the only woman, to accompany the Lewis and Clark expedition, which, of course, we know explored the territory from St. Louis, Missouri, clear to the Pacific Ocean to the mouth of the Columbia River. And like I said, that was a little over 200 years ago, about 1804 through 1806. So, there was a lot written about the members of the Corps of Discovery during that time, but not much is known about their later lives except for Lewis and Clark. Those are the only two that we really know much about later on in life. But,
Okay.
you know, Sacagawea's French Indian son, Baptiste, was destined to actually catch the fancy of a prince from Europe who educated him like a nobleman in a royal castle, and he made a grand tour of the European continent. And when he came back here to his native land, he became a prominent hunter, trader, trapper, guide, interpreter, and actually a gold hunter in the California gold fields.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those details right now, but he was actually born in an earth mound lodge on the Missouri River, and his birth was recorded by Captain Meriwether Lewis in his journal, February 11th, 1805. And he says in his journal, about 5 o'clock this morning, one of the wives of Charbonneau was delivered of a fine boy. Now, Baptist's father was a guy by the name of Toussaint Charbonneau, and he'd been hired by Lewis and Clark to be the expedition's interpreter. So Toussaint Charbonneau, by this time he was about 47 years old in 1805, and he seems to have been kind of a kind of a weak-willed, kind of an excitable guy, kind of abusive toward his young 17-year-old Shoshone wife, Sacagawea. But again, that wasn't uncommon among mountain men and some of the frontiersmen. Some of them treated their wives very, very good, and some didn't, and which was unfortunate because Sacagawea, for everything I've read, was just a wonderful, sweet kind of gal.
Mm-hmm.
But his reputation wasn't too good even among the fur traders, the guys that he ran around with, so to speak. But anyway, various historians have stated that Sacagawea was either purchased by Charbonneau from a tribe called the Minnetarees, or that he won her as a gambling wager with members of that tribe.
Wow.
So either way, she became his wife. And now Charbonneau's son apparently inherited his mother's intelligence, attractive features, a cheerful good nature. In fact, in his journal, Captain Clark referred to Baptist as a beautiful, promising child, and actually called him my little dancing boy. But the baby was undoubtedly the most popular as well as the youngest member of this exploring party. And I guess you can imagine with a group of explorers like that, with a young baby, missing their own children, they probably really thought a lot of this little baby along the trip. But
sure.
Anyway, Captain Clark, he'd become really fond of Baptiste, and he actually urged the parents to let him take Baptiste and raise him as his own. And Clark offered actually to set up Toussaint as an interpreter in a business in St. Louis. But Charbonneau and Sacagawea, they declined. They didn't want to give up Baptiste to Captain Clark. So now we move ahead a little bit. 1811, Baptiste now is about 6 years old, and at some point he was left in Clark's care for a little while, but in April of that year, we know that his father and mother traveled up the Missouri River on a keelboat with a guy by the name of Manuel Lisa. And Manuel Lisa was kind of a pretty famous fur trader. He built a fur trapping post and one thing and another. Anyway, as they traveled up the river, Sacagawea was starting to become sick, and she really wanted to get back to her village to visit them for one last time. And Charbonneau, the father, he kind of wanted to get back into that area too. And anyway, when they got back in there, it was about 1818, and this is when Sacagawea died. And she was only about 25 years old, and she'd also had a little baby girl at this time.
I see.
So now, for the next few years, the records of Baptist's whereabouts are a little sketchy. There's a white trader that reported seeing the boy among the Mandan Indians when he was probably about 11 years old in about 1816. Now, about this time, Clark was superintendent of Indian Affairs, and he'd always wanted to educate Baptiste for an interpreter. So he called him on Charbonneau, Toussaint, the father, and he said, well, let me take your son, Baptiste, and he had an older brother that was Toussaint Jr., and he got them and took them into a school for Indians and half-breed boys in St. Louis.
I see.
So they were educated for a while in that setting. Now, we next hear about Baptiste in about June of 1823, and this is when he met a guy named Prince Paul of Württemberg, Germany. Germany.
Well, Germany, they're all in the same continent, aren't they?
That's easy to say.
Okay.
So, anyway, Baptiste by this time was about 18 years old, and the prince was also kind of a young man. He was about 26.
Okay.
And he'd come west in search of scientific knowledge, and he was immediately attracted to this French-Indian teenage boy, Baptiste. So, now, Prince Paul, kind of a funny name there, I don't know, but anyway, he had actually trained for the military in Germany, but he was more interested in other things. He was interested in science and literature and philosophy, and I don't know, might have been a little disappointment to his father. I don't know, it doesn't say that, but anyway, in the course of him coming to America, he actually made 5 trips out here to the Old West, and like I say, he took a liking to Baptiste, and after they'd made some of these trips, he approached William Clark, and I don't know why he went to him, but he asked if he could take Baptiste back to Europe with him. And for whatever reason, Clark said, yeah, you can take him over there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about 1823, and they sailed over to Europe. And now for the next 6 years, Baptiste lived in a castle near Stuttgart, Germany.
Oh, my.
And here he studied languages like German, English, French, Spanish, which was to help him in later life to become an interpreter. But he also studied books and learning, and which, again, was unusual for a mountain man, and we'll get to that later. But he traveled to France, England, Germany, Africa. So for a young man, he was well-traveled.
Mm-hmm.
So together they returned to America about 1829, and Prince Paul got permission again from Clark to go head up the Missouri River, and he had about 4 or 5 guys with him, and we assume that Baptiste was one of these guys. And when they got up the river a ways, there's some point where they parted company, and they actually would never be seen again together for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So. Now, for the next 15 years, Baptiste lived kind of the life of a mountain man. He roamed through the western wilderness as a trapper, trapping beaver. He went from the Rockies, from New Mexico to Oregon. We figure he probably went through this area right here.
Now, did he live as an Indian, or did he live as a white trapper?
He was a white trapper. He lived as a mountain man trapper.
I see.
And we know he was employed by the American Fur Company in 1829. Again, things are a little sketchy about his life, but we know that he worked for the American Fur Company trapping beaver.
Okay.
And we know that he came into this Idaho-Utah area in about 1830. We know that he was over in the Malad River, Cache Valley area. He's reported as traveling with Jim Bridger and another guy named Joe Meek.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that he was at the Fur Trapper Rendezvous on Green River in 1833. So, we just get hints of his being, like I say, in this area. But in 1839-40, he was a member of a party led by a guy named Andrew Sublett, who, again, came into this area.
Right.
But here, Baptiste served as a hunter. He traveled through the West quite a ways and mingled with a lot of the famous people of the era. So now there's one point where he joined a party of sportsmen led by a guy from Scotland. His name was Sir William Stewart.
Oh, yeah. I went to dinner with him one night.
Well, this guy was an interesting character. Came over from Scotland, and he hired a bunch of guys to drive carts with, a couple of mules, because he was going to come over here and just explore. And so, by this time, Baptiste is about 38 years old, and he's one of the drivers. And anyway, like I say, he's kind of driving and helping with this thing, and they know that they went through, followed the old Oregon Trail over South Pass, and then into the Green River area, and actually went up into the Yellowstone.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So, meanwhile, let's go back to Baptiste's father.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering what happened to good old Toussaint.
Well, Toussaint kind of divided his time between trading, interpreting, and pursuing romance, if we want to call it that.
Okay, you did that very well.
He tended to have a number of different wives.
Uh-huh.
So, 1838, at age 80, Toussaint Charbonneau acquired his last wife, a 14-year-old Assiniboine Indian girl.
At age 80?
At age 80, you know. Like I say, he was following his romantic adventures.
What kind of a diet was he on?
I don't know. Anyway, we know that he worked for the U.S. government as an Indian agent, but by about 1819 or somewhere in there, he was broke. He had no money. By this time, he was about 81 years of old. The last thing we know about him, he got paid for being an Indian agent, and then he kind of vanished, and he was gone. No more word about him.
I see. Okay.
So finishing up with Baptiste, we know that he made a hunting excursion into the mountains with this Sublette guy and others, and they wanted to catch bighorn sheep and antelope for this Sir William Stewart's estate in Scotland, and they actually caught the bighorn sheep and one thing and another to send back to Scotland with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, now we move ahead to about 1846. The Mexican War is getting underway, and this is when the government inducted some Mormon boys into what they called the Mormon Battalion.
Okay.
And this was commanded by a Lieutenant Colonel Cook, and they marched all the way from Missouri clear to San Diego, about 2,000 miles, but Baptiste Charbonneau went along as a guide. And like I say, this military expedition had been organized by the government in Omaha, and the Mormon Battalion was to aid in the conquest of California during this Mexican War.
How old was the guy by this time? He had to be about 50 or 60, wasn't he?
Okay, this is about 1846, and he was born in, 1804.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's about 43.
Okay.
Or 44, something right in there. So he was getting, for a mountain man, it's getting up there, actually.
You bet.
So, but anyway, he and some other guys led this wagon train across the deserts of New Mexico, Las Vegas, Arizona, and they had to break a road in order to make the wagons through some of this distance. And anyway, old Baptiste, he was dressed in a red shirt and riding a tough old army mule, and he's mentioned in diaries of some of the others as preceding the caravan, searching for water over passes through the mountains. He was really good at this, I guess, trying to find ways to get across some of the canyons. And in addition to this, Colonel Cook tells in his journal of Baptiste's skill in selecting routes, trapping beaver, establishing camps, scouting, estimating distances. And I thought this was interesting, locating smoke signals.
Well, wait a minute. I've got a question for you right here. All of a sudden, you've triggered something in my mind to where I can't remember if it was in a movie called Centennial or if it was in the movie How the West Was Won or something like that. But I remember now the name Baptiste Charbonneau. And did he always wore that red shirt, and did he not also wear a stovepipe hat?
It doesn't say that in anything I've read here.
Oh.
They've got an artist's description of him, and he's just basically dressed like a mountain man.
I see.
The long hair, the long coat, the rifle, the powder horn, the knife.
I see.
So I don't know that I can say that for sure or not.
Okay.
So, but like I say, he hunted bears, he fought Indians, and he was a great service to these guys getting to San Diego. So, but anyway, the colonel also recorded some incidences that happened. He said, this is from his diary. He says, since dark, Charbonneau has come in. His mule gave out, he says, and he stopped for it to rest and feed a half an hour. When going to saddle it, it kicked at him and ran off. He said he followed a number of miles and finally shot it.
That's a good old Charbonneau.
If you've been around mules, sometimes that's the best thing you can do with them is shoot them. So he says, partly, I suppose, from anger, and partly, he says, to get his saddle and pistols, which he brought back to camp. So, you know, you don't want to leave your mule out there running around with all your gear on it.
No, heaven's sake, just shoot the son of a gun.
Yeah, get your stuff back. So, anyway, so after the Mormon battalion arrived at its headquarters in San Diego, Baptist was kind of discharged, and the last 19 years of his life was actually spent in California. And so this adventurous hunter, trader, trapper, guide, interpreter next turned up in the Sacramento Valley in about 1848 or 49, and of course that's when the discovery of gold at Sutter's Mill took place.
Right.
And you know, he just hung around there for a while, and he met up with some of his old trapper buddies, and he probably hunted for gold, but it doesn't say he really had any success that way. But now, about this time, this prince from Germany shows up.
He's back in the picture again? I'll be darned.
He comes back in.
Okay.
He's in California, and he's visiting Captain John Sutter at his fort.
My
goodness. But we don't know if the two got together. There's no proof that they ever actually got together again.
I see.
So, anyway, we really, again, don't know for sure all of his wanderings, but we do know that finally the final entries about his life, this educated, much-traveled French Indian son of Sacagawea, the next thing we read about is his obituary. In 1866, an obituary showed up in the newspaper in Auburn, California. And he was, according to the obituary, he was about 61 years old, and they think that he died of pneumonia.
Okay.
And there was he's buried supposedly somewhere between Sacramento and Boise, Idaho, out in that Owyhee area.
Really?
Somewhere along the Oregon-Idaho line, out in that area somewhere, there was a stage station that they think he was at on his way to Boise, died, and basically is in an unidentified grave somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere in that Owyhee desert.
I'll be darned. And he actually probably, right where I'm sitting, right now in Murtaugh, probably had his moccasins on the ground right here.
Well, you know, I'm sitting here and, you know, right along the Snake River where I'm at, I'm thinking he probably walked through here too.
Oh, my goodness sakes.
You know, along with Jim Bridger and some of those other trappers, they came all the way down through here looking for beaver.
Oh, my goodness. You know, really, when you think about it, and where we are, and what happened in the old days. You know, I was going to ask you real quick, and I'm almost out of time. I've only got a minute left, but I would like you to do kind of a little history sketch on Star Falls, which is just a mile north of me, and about the fur trappers that lost their lives down there in that cauldron, the Cauldron Lynn. And we ought to do a story on that because, boy, I'll tell you what, I can understand why that would happen. The water's so calm, and then all of a sudden it goes into that torrent, and it's terrible down there. And I'll bet you that was a dangerous thing for the fur trappers to have to try to avoid.
Well, that was the Wilson Hunt Price party.
Yeah,
that went down through there, and that was the first recorded death of a white man in Idaho.
Really?
Yeah, that was, and you're exactly right. It's right there at the Cauldron Lynn, and anybody that's seen that in high water, even low water.
Oh my!
That is had to be a terrible place to try to go through with a canoe.
Very spooky. Listen, that was interesting. Baptiste Charbonneau, the son of Sacagawea,
and the son of Toussaint Charbonneau.
Yeah, but he's kind of an also-ran.
he was it's a good thing he took after his mother.
I'm still sitting here thinking about being 81 years old, marrying a 14-year-old. I mean, oh my!
I think maybe he just wanted a nursemaid.
Okay, I think he did. Hey, great job.
Final years.
Great job, Dr. History. In his real life, he's a chiropractor known as Dr. Ken Turner. And Ken, are we any further along on that project? Hurry, I've only got 30 seconds left.
We are. In fact, I emailed something to you. I don't know if you ever got it, though. Did you still not get that?
I got the caricature of what it's going to look like.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, very well done. So very well done.
Yep, we're moving ahead on that.
Okay. Dr. History every Tuesday. Now, you're going to be gone next week, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. We'll fill the spot, but we'll look forward to the week after. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. You have a good day, Zeb.
All right, God bless. Thank you so much.
Bye.
We are going to take a little break right now and send it over to our main studios, and we'll be back with more Zeb at the Ranch after this.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch on our last half hour. And I want to remind everybody, too, quickly about our School Days in Cassia County segment every Thursday, brought to you by A Child's World at 1308 Overland in Burley. And don't forget, at A Child's World, right now it's their 11th birthday sales celebration, all the way till the end of this week. They're going to have daily drawings for gift certificates and stays at the Burley Marriott, along with Papa Balloon for discounts. Spring items are arriving daily. All of this and more at A Child's World, 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. Along with our friends at Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. Don't forget, they will always give you outstanding professional care in a very friendly atmosphere and can save you hundreds of dollars. Ask your doctor to perform your outpatient surgery right there at Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley, 677-8888. And both of those sponsors bringing you School Days in Cassia County. Right now, without further ado, we have a gentleman on the line that is going to throw his hat in the ring to try to become the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Idaho. And I know I'm going to say his name wrong no matter how hard I try, so he can feel free to correct me. Jim Schmelik, how are you?
You actually got it right, Zeb. Good job.
Well, send a cash, check, or money order. I'll take it.
Not a problem. I've heard it said a lot of ways, but you got it right that time, man.
All right.
Good.
Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know that you served a second term, are serving a second term as an Idaho County Commissioner and serve as the Vice Chairman. But give us a little background on you so everybody knows who you are.
Well, I'm currently a county commissioner. I've been married to my wife for 25 years. We have 8 wonderful children from the ages of 7 to 24. I've got one married, and we've got a granddaughter from her. I've got another one getting married. I've got another child in college, and I've got another one heading off to school this fall. I run a small cabinet and furniture making business. We actually ship pieces all over the country. Believe it or not, we just finished a job that was actually over in Falls Church, Virginia. So we specialize in kind of unique pieces of work. The state of Idaho, I love this place. I can't say enough good things about it. I tell everybody, I've been all over this country and all over the Northwest, and I always just kind of snap my fingers together and say, Idaho is just something special about it. And like I said, I enjoy living here, and I enjoy raising my family here, and it's just a wonderful place to do so many different things, and what a beautiful state that we have. I've been all over it, and I've traveled around and speaking about public lands. A lot of people actually asked me if I was going to run for anything, and I continually said no. I'm just running for one thing. I want Idaho to have ownership of its public lands. I believe Idaho can determine its own destiny better than anybody else, and we need to have access to those lands. And we're federally owned with 62% federal ownership, and it's a battle I've waged since 2002. In the last 3 years as a county commissioner, and I've spoken extensively about it and written extensively about it.
Well, now, Jim, let me jump in here, and I want to get back to the public lands here in just a few minutes, but you're going to be going against Brad Little on the May 20th primary. Tell everybody why you would be better suited for the job of Lieutenant Governor.
I could sum that up in a statement, and it's a statement I use a lot, and that's when the reward is great, the effort to succeed is great. But when government takes away all the reward, no one will try or want to succeed. And I respect Brad Little as a person. He's a good man. He's a family man. Heck, he can't be that bad. Him and I celebrate the same birthday on February this past Saturday. But he doesn't have a vision that I do for getting our lands back. He supported the health care exchanges in the state, and my understanding he supports the Common Core curriculum that we're looking at coming down now, and all these are coming from the federal government, and I just don't believe that's the direction this state should be taking. 40% of our budget comes from the federal government. I wouldn't call that a balanced budget by any stretch of the imagination.
And it's because we don't have access to those public lands and are able to utilize them for our benefit. And more importantly, Zeb, we need to be taking care of those public lands for future generations. And the current policies that are coming down through the federal government and through the radical, what I call the radical environmental groups, are just destroying our forests. They're wreaking havoc way worse than logging practices ever did.
Well, according to the bio sheet I've got here, Jim, and I compliment you for this, that you were very instrumental in getting the legislature to study the transfer of public lands back to the state. I am a big proponent and fan of getting the feds out of our life and, quite frankly, out of our state. What do you think the chances of obtaining that federal land and us managing it in the future? What are our chances?
Well, I think they're very good because a lot of people don't understand the history of this country and public lands. It's been done before. Every state that was established after the original 13 colonies had public ownership by the federal government, and they disposed of those lands. But interestingly enough, those states had to demand Congress to do that, to dispose of those lands. Like I said, I give a presentation on this. It's about a 25-minute presentation. And when I get done explaining that, and the history behind it, the documentation and ceding language from the original 7 colonies that ceded language to the Continental Congress so they could have assets to borrow money to fund the war. They go, why weren't we ever taught this stuff? And so, and the battles raised in Congress, too, after the establishment of this country, as states were brought in, they said, wait a minute, you guys aren't honoring your duty to dispose of the land. And it surrounds around 2 parts of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, and Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. Those 2 parts of the Constitution either have to work congruently or you have to throw one of them out because one of them says the federal government's allowed to own this land over here, and that land that it's not allowed to own, Article 4 says, 3, Section 2 says you have to dispose of it, and you have a duty to do that. So I think we do get our land back. Is it going to be easy? Nope, and it wasn't easy for those at the time with the western states when they fought for it too, which actually, interestingly enough, those western states were Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri, Ohio, and Indiana. But they had to make their case, they were persistent, and they didn't give up. And you know, Zeb, if we don't try, we'll never know. We have to. We have to do this if we're going to honor our Constitution.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Jim, and a lot of people, and I'm not one of them, believe me, I have respect for the position and I have respect for the people that hold the position. But when the lieutenant governor, he's basically part-time position and always the man behind. Can you accept being the man behind, and why did you choose to run for the lieutenant governorship?
You bet I can accept the man behind because I believe you can actually take that office and you can use it the way I've used the county commissioner office. Since 2002, I've spoken and written about issues in lands in Idaho. I've debated the Attorney General's office. I did all that as a private citizen. Since I've become a county commissioner, it's given me a platform to use this office to push this issue of public lands. And it's so important to me in Idaho County because 85% of our county is federally owned by the government. Mm-hmm. I believe you can take that same position and use it as lieutenant governor and go out and educate people. And educate people not just on the public lands. I'm a free market, free enterprise type of guy. I believe people can better decide for themselves how to spend their money than the government can. So I believe if we get out there and we do things like that, educate people. You know, I don't want to sit around and wait for the governor to die. I got the duties you have to carry on as the lieutenant governor. You're president of the Senate. You break tiebreakers. You perform functions the governor likes to have you do. But after that, you know, I know it's a part-time position, but the same thing in Idaho County. This is a part-time position that I've taken and made a full-time issue out of it over these public lands issues and many other things. I've testified down in the legislature on many issues from health care to education and a plethora of other issues because I think they're not only important to Idaho County, they're important to the state. And the reason I'm running for lieutenant governor, I was asked by a lot of people, a lot of people came up and said, Jim, would you consider running for higher office? And I basically said no. And finally, the demand just was there, and I said, you know what? I guess we'll throw our hat in this ring, and we'll go where it goes. I think I have good ideas, and I'm willing to stand behind those ideas.
Absolutely. Tell who's ever in the background to tone it down a little bit, Jim. They're overshadowing you. And I wanted to get your opinion on something about Common Core, but we've got a quick call with a question for you, so stand by. Caller, go ahead, please, quickly. Quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, if I remember history right, Hawaii got their lands back from the federal government in 1959, and so that sets a precedent that we can follow there also. Let him speak to that, if you would.
Okay, Jim, did you hear the question?
Hawaii demanded their lands as statehood. That's the interesting thing. And guess what? They have it all. They have roughly 95% ownership of the lands of Hawaii. So that actually, they saw the history of what went on in this country. So when they came in as a State of the Union, they demanded it right then and there at the table, and they got it.
Okay. Now, Jim, you mentioned Common Core, and on my program, I have bits and pieces, torn it apart, chewed it up. I'm not a fan of Common Core. I wasn't a fan of No Child Left Behind. I think it's too much government involvement in our lives and in our students. What are your aspects of Common Core that you personally don't like?
I don't like starting with the testing. 7 hours for third graders to take tests. I don't start from like the standpoint of some of the curriculum materials I've seen put in place. Some of this stuff shouldn't even be allowed in public libraries, if you ask me. But I wouldn't stop that. I mean, that's just my opinion on that. But some of this stuff is pretty bad. I'm chairman of a small private school up in Cottonwood that we run up here, and there's no way I would let this curriculum in our school. I believe a curriculum, we need to get back to an education that empowers parents, empowers teachers. I think our administration is way too top-heavy, and I think we need to get back to teaching some fundamental things to kids like reading, writing, and arithmetic, and not what to think, but how to think, Zeb.
Okay. Final thought here before I let you go, but I also need to ask you about Obamacare and our state health exchange. What are your thoughts on both of those?
I lobbied against both the state health exchange. I lobbied against the federal exchange. I lobbied for a free market private solution that will empower individuals. You can take the current public dollars, create a private-public partner relationship, and empower the people who really do need the help with this, and come up with a solution that fits Idaho. Every state's unique to what it has. And we weren't looking down those roads. We weren't willing to stand up to the federal government and simply do one thing, just say no, and we'll seek our own solutions and find our own way out for this. And I don't have time to go in that, but I've thought heavily about this, and that would be a top for another half an hour on your show, Zeb.
Okay. Now, Jim, I want to compliment you. You're very well-spoken. You've got a real good head on your shoulders for discussing the ideas and the goals of what you want to achieve and what you'd like to see for Idaho. What about your campaign? Is it basically, are you pretty well known now all over the state?
I have a lot of name idea. I was surprised. I was awarded the Republican Administrator of the Year award back in January for all my work on public lands. And when I was at that meeting, I went down and accepted that reward. And then after that, I can't tell you how many people from all around the state walked up to me, these Republican precinct people, and said, "So you're Jim Schmelik." I was shocked. I didn't realize that people knew who I was, knew what my issue was. And that was a pleasant surprise. It was very humbling. And I also like to tell people that reward is the people of the state of Idaho, because they're the ones that saw the vision behind the idea. I just put the idea forward, and they grabbed onto it. And for that, I'm very grateful, very honored, and very humbled.
Well, I want to wish you a lot of success. I appreciate the time you took to come on our program. Jim Schmelik, running for Lieutenant Governor of the state of Idaho. God's blessings, and hopefully we'll get you back on the air again in the future.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Zeb. Have a great day.
All right, sir. Thank you. Very nice man. Very articulate man. Jim Schmelik, running for Lieutenant Governor, lives up at Cottonwood, and won the 2014, I'm trying to find the right terminology here. I can't find it right here on my program sheet. Won the award for the top GOP legislator, I believe. There you go. Anyway, nice gentleman, Jim Schmelik. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, he's got my vote. He's going to be running at same time at the primaries as Simpson?
Yeah, he's going to be running against Brad Little in the GOP primary on May 20th.
May 20?
May 20, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll put that on my calendar. I didn't know what day they were going to be.
All right, sir. Thank you for calling. Appreciate it. Calls are welcome, and we thank you at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Let me just say this, and I want to get this out of the way. Any and all politicians, if you want to get on this program, you can feel free to call me, and we will schedule to get you on. I am not going to be the bird dog going out in the woods trying to find everybody, but I'll guarantee you we will try to make allowances to make sure that all the races are covered and all the personalities are on the program. I will do my utmost, but be sure and give me a little bit of leeway and a little time to get things scheduled, and I will be more than happy to put you on this program for the various offices that are going to be coming up in November, okay? Just give me a call at 312-2976. That number again, 312-2976. I think we better have a weather update with Michael Rogers, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Looks like we got winter working its way back toward the Magic Valley. Cloudy today. No precipitation in the forecast, and temperatures are still going to be slightly on the mild side. Now, Wednesday, chance of snow. 39 for the high. You're going to come out of it Wednesday night going in Thursday with windy conditions as the wind gusts to possibly about 25 to 30 miles an hour. Otherwise, got a short break from spring before spring actually gets here, and we're still in winter, and you'll see that when we get to tomorrow. So enjoy the day, enjoy the weather. Don't know whether you got.
There you go, MichaelRogersWeather.com, and we appreciate Michael being on the program. Right now, let's check over with Gina. Gina, we have just opened up the Pandora's box of 2014 midterm elections. It's going to be a busy, busy time.
Yes, it is. And so, yeah. I always, honestly, I hate this time of year. I hate it.
You do? Why?
Well, it's just, it's the election seasons and, all of the campaigns and them just, I get very turned off on when it comes to election campaigning.
But, on the other side of the coin, I respect everybody that gets involved. I respect everybody that runs, like this Mr. Schmelik. I respect everybody for the various races. And the word is out, and I think you'll concur. All they have to do is call, and we will try to make as many allowances, for people that are running for a particular office. We'll try to get them on the air, and we'll try to let people hear them and their opinions. And, it's going to turn into, especially, as you know, September, October, and then going into the first part of November. It is going to be a zoo, and we're the ones they're going to throw peanuts at.
Pretty much so. And I was listening to the interview with Jim, and I really liked what he had to say, especially about the Common Core.
Yeah, now, wait a minute. Cottonwood's not that far from where you were born and raised, is it?
It's kind of halfway between Cottonwood is over towards Grangeville, which is a little bit south from where I was.
What I have found with politicians, not only here, but when I interview them from around the country, I don't care if it's John LeBoutelier back in New York and he's got a TV show on Fox, I don't care who it is, you're really surprised and amazed as to how well-spoken and how knowledgeable some people are that are not in the limelight every day on ABC, NBC, etc.
Amen. Well, and it just shows that they do keep up on the topics and they're reading about it. And, they are educated and they do have a very eloquent voice. And so they're just trying to make their voices heard, just like the rest of us.
You ever thought about running for office?
Heck no, would never do it.
Why?
No. I would not put my family in under that kind of a microscope.
Yeah, but you know something? I would vote for you. I don't care if you were running for the city dog catcher or if you were running for county commissioner. I would support you because, A, you're outspoken. Boy, is she outspoken. B, you're going to tell the truth. And C, you're not going to put up with a lot of balderdash that absolutely doesn't matter.
True, I would not, but however, on the flip side, would I want to put myself, my life, my history, and my family under the limelight like that and under the microscope, no.
You know, right there.
I will be the reporter that reports on everybody else who wants to go under that scrutiny.
But you know, right there you touched on it. I have been asked to run for various political positions, okay? Mm-hmm. And if I opened up my closet, a skeleton wouldn't fall out. You'd have a pile of bones there that looked like a buffalo dump.
Exactly, and so that's why I would just, no. I will be the reporter that gets to talk to all of the candidates, and we can build wonderful relationships that way. But am I going to put myself and my name on a ballot aside from just being the voter? No.
But in a program like this, and I think you'll agree with me, I feel the position that we have as an opinion program is that we can do more and a better service to the general public by exploring and also going into the different problems of their personal opinions to expose the best of the worst or the best of every candidate.
I agree, and especially when you're coming into political season as it is, and election season, then we're the ones that get to delve into the background. And,
absolutely,
and so we get to showcase that good, bad, and indifferent. I mean, that is our job, and so that's kind of the job that I would like to keep.
Absolutely. Do we have that call coming in for me?
Yes. Yes.
Quick call. I've just got time. I've only got a minute left, and then I got to do a commercial. Caller, real fast. Good morning. You're on the air.
Can I just sing happy birthday to Deanne?
You go right ahead real quick. She's listening.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deanne. Happy birthday to you.
Why, she just thought she had the song of the Sugar Plum Fairies. She thought it was wonderful. Thank you.
Just have a great day.
All right. God bless you. Thank you for your call. Yup, it's Deanne's birthday, and she's going to lunch, and I'm going to sit here and just enjoy being alone. She's going to be enjoying getting away from me. Oh, yeah, it's going to be a great day. Hey, don't forget our Founders Celebration at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers in honor of the great Mr. Les Schwab. What a great man he was, and what a business he started. My goodness, the very best of all the Les Schwab Tire Centers all over the West. And right here we have 7 great locations serving you with all the best in tires, all the best in front-end alignments, shocks and struts, brakes, you better believe it, batteries, it's all there. The best in service. With Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, and of course John on Poline and Twin Falls, and Randy on Oberlin and Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Big Founders Day celebration sale going on right now. Don't you miss it. Let me take a look at tomorrow, and we had to make a little change in the schedule. Tomorrow morning at 8:06, we're going to have an open forum. At 8:30, Representative Fred Wood is going to call in and be on the air for about 15-20 minutes. And then at 9:06, Doug Johnson from Colorado. And then also at 10:06 tomorrow morning, a very important segment with the Idaho Fish and Game. And we'll also have another guest, I believe, from Sacramento, California. And yesterday, we had James Taylor with the Heartland Institute scheduled to be on the air talking about global warming, and we missed the connections with him. Evidently, I had taken down a phone number wrong or whatever. I called him after the program, and he very graciously is going to come back on our show next Monday at 10:06. Don't miss this, because he's really going to go head-to-head with Secretary of State John Kerry and his statements about how all of us that don't believe in global warming are flat earthers. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be really good. Zeb at the Ranch, K-Bar Radio, 1230, streaming live all over the world on ZebBell.com. The way things were, the way things ought to be. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.